Hi, I'm Niels from Qt. I'm the CEO of the company. And what I'm going to talk to you about here today is some learning that we have gathered over the last 7 years, where we have been working a lot within ticketing. So the subject of the presentation today is how to sell out when you are doing a large on sale. The title is Can you sell out in 2 minutes? And the answer I can already disclose that now is that you cannot do it, and this is about why not. But first of all, you have seen a lot of press releases where you can see that large ticketing events with international artists seems to have been sold out in a matter of seconds or at least a few minutes. And there is a lot of these press releases floating around where someone is claiming that it was sold out in less than a minute. So I'll start by making a little bit of a definition. And the definition on being sold out is, of course, maybe some part of the problem here. But the definition I'm going to use here today is that sold out means that all the announced tickets are actually sold. Meaning, if you are claiming that you're selling 30,000 tickets, that means that end users using the electronic platform have purchased those 30,000 tickets. And also that tickets are bought by individual end users, not robots or anything else. And it also means that they have actually purchased the ticket, meaning that at the end of the transaction, there is a binding credit card transaction, for example, that finalize the actual purchase, and that the payment had been verified. But maybe also that the end user see a display, or maybe are receiving an email confirmation where they can see that they actually got the ticket. Fundamentally, most of the ticketing platforms that we have seen around have sort of the same dynamic, and that's not like the biggest surprise. But that dynamic is typically that you can go in and find tickets. Then you would be able to actually dig in and find a range of seats. And then most ticketing systems have so that once you are given the option of selecting seats, you can do a reservation for a number of seats. And then most of the ticketing platform then promise you whatever you have reserved, you have the option to actually buy them using a checkout process. And one of the things that are also very common and are typically used by all the major ticketing platform is some kind of basket or cart checkout timer that limits the time that you can have the reservation on the tickets. And typically that timeout period is somewhere in between 7 and 30 minutes, meaning from the time where you are actually putting the reservation in and until you need to have finalized the checkout transaction. And the reason for having that period is, of course, to allow the end user to have sufficient time to correctly enter the information that are needed on your name, address, and credit card information, and again with the idea to have a smooth process without stressing end users up where they need to hurry more than they can actually handle. In some situations, we will see that baskets, carts are left with reserved tickets that are not checked out. And there is, of course, a number of reasons why real end users will not finalize the checkout. Taking it from the beginning, it could be that the end user on his device have used multiple browsers, simply with the purpose of getting into the popular ticket as fast as possible. End users will obviously only use one browser to finalize the actual purchase. And if you have two browsers with two cards with different reserved tickets, he will obviously use the browser with the best tickets and check them out. It can also be that the user have been using not multiple browsers but multiple devices, like his desktop, tablet, mobile and so forth. And the next very interesting pattern here is purchases in groups, meaning two friends, a family, eager to go into the show. They are sitting not even in the same room, but having a telephone conversation. They are both of them, as soon as they have the possibility, are putting some tickets into the cart. Then they are discussing which tickets they actually want to go with. And once they have made that final decision, one of the parts here will actually do the checkout, and the other basket or cart will then be left without the checkout. Then there can, of course, be that the available tickets is not the right seating, it's not the right date that fulfill the need you have for the specific event. There might also be a pricing constraint here where the tickets that were available were simply too expensive to you, and therefore, okay, you have the ticket, but it was way over your budget, so you're gonna leave that basket or cart without a checkout. And there's probably a lot of other reasons. But this basically means that less than 100% of the reserved tickets are checked out. And this is very clearly a fundamental in a ticketing on sale where it's end users that are participating in this sale. So when we are actually looking at the timeline of a sale, and let's say that we have a on sale that starts at 10 a.m., a lot of people are then coming into the ticketing part. They will see tickets that are available. They will start doing the reservation. Just milliseconds after 10 a.m., no tickets are sold, no tickets are reserved. But the reservations are going to go very quickly, and it might be that within a couple of minutes, all tickets are reserved and are sitting in baskets. And the same with the amount of sold tickets. That would, of course, start with 100% non-sold tickets, and that will then, over the duration of the time, of course, decrease. But the interesting fact here is that because baskets are left without a checkout, then within the first period of the cart checkout, there will be tickets that are reserved but are not sold. And the difference between the non-sold ticket and the non-reserved ticket can be as high as 50%. But that means that 10 minutes into the sale, you will see that the initial cart that were reserved, they will now start to time out, and these tickets are then put back into the pool where you can put a reservation on them again. So basically, the non-reserved tickets will see a release of available tickets 10 minutes into the sale. And again, if 10% of the tickets were reserved but not sold, then 10% of the tickets are released back into the system 10 minutes into the sale. And you will have the same flow one generation later, where the ones that are released in the first 10 minutes, some part of that are not sold, and you will see another release 20 minutes into the sale. And this is basically a fundamental function where this has nothing to do with server capacity. This is only a function on how long the session timeout on the cart and the basket are, nothing else. And what you can see on the slide here is that there will then be a period where you somehow, maybe 2-3 minutes into the sale, and at least into a period being 10 minutes after the start of the sale, could see a situation where people will not be able to find any tickets. Whether you are then telling the end users that the tickets are sold out, or that there is no possible way you can get the reservation on a ticket, that varies from system to system. But there is just a time slot that are insanely long, where people who want to get a ticket are not able to get any reservations on a ticket. And overall, the fundamental claim here an observation that we see around the globe when we're doing big on sales is that it's simply not possible to sell out in less than 2 times the basket cart timeout time. So if the timeout is 10 minutes, it's simply not possible to sell out in less than 20 minutes. And this is, of course, again linked to the definition, and the definition say that sold out means that the ticket is actually sold to end users. That also means that when we are putting this claim up here, we're not talking about tickets that might have been sold to robots. We're not talking about tickets that has been, and using a ticketing term called reallocated, meaning that the 30,000 tickets were actually what was announced was on sale, but at the end of the day, only 10,000 tickets are actually sold to end users, where the other 20,000 are reallocated for other purposes. But this is a very fundamental way of actually understand how these on sale goes. And during the period of the 7 years where we with Qt have helped ticketing companies around the globe, we have never ever seen anything that contradicts this timeline. So that's really a fundamental that you need to be aware of, because it tells you, when you're a ticketing company, what could you possibly expect is the minimum timing. It also tells you, if you see stories where someone apparently claim that it's going faster, then you know why that cannot be true. And it also it tells you a little bit about what you need to do in that 20-minute period, where you know that from the start of the on sale and until the tickets are actually sold out, you have end users with a expectation. There is a 20-minute period from the start and until you know that everything is sold out, and you need basically to do something with the end users in that period. So if you're looking at this here, let's say from a end user psychology perspective, you basically see that there is 2 time slots, some way between maybe 4 and 10 minutes after the start of the sale, and then again maybe from the 15th to the 20th minute, where end users in the normal way of doing this here will see something that indicates that the tickets are sold out. The real struggle about this here, seen from the end user's perspective, is that no matter what you're saying to them, they simply do not understand it. So if you are putting a sold out message into the platform 7 minutes into the sale, and then your wife are able to get tickets 14 minutes after the sale because tickets were released and she were lucky to get that, you would basically think that the whole process is rigged, because the platform stated sold out and someone was actually able to buy tickets 14 minutes into the sale. So these 2 red areas that are marked on the slide here simply just shows a couple of danger zones where if you are not doing this very precise and correctly, then you would at least confuse your patrons and end users, but maybe even put a suspicion in that something was not done the correct way. Our recommendation, and again based on all the on sales that we have helped our customers with around the globe, is that only enter the number of users into the ticketing path that realistically have a possibility of reaching the end of the user journey with some tickets in their hand. And that is, of course, where it's very smart to use the Qt software, because we have a way whereby we can park the users prior to going into the ticketing path, and where we are starting to set the expectation up about the tickets that they can actually sort of acquire. Because there is a minimum wait time of at least 20 minutes, we strongly believe that this is the most logical way of handling an end user, making sure that the expectations you are putting forward into them meaning they are in the queue in the waiting room maybe until 15 minutes into the sale, is way better than to put them into a ticketing path where they are struggling to understand why they are not able to get the tickets. The other recommendation, and that is fundamentally linked to the function where we know that the time to sell out is a function of the basket and cart timeout. And if it is so, the idea is, of course, to try to minimize that session and cart timeout. And one of the things that are very clear is that a 20 or 30 minute timeout is very long. It's way longer than normal end users need. But again, if you are trying to reduce that down to 2 minutes and you have a timer counting towards 2 minutes, you know that you're going to really stress a lot of end users, and the error rate on whatever they are needing to feed the system will of course go up. So one of the ideas that sort of looking at the entire timeline here on the way of doing it the recommended way will be to have a almost linear flow on the sold and the reserved tickets over the duration of the 20 minutes, meaning that the same amount of users comes into the ticketing path, a fraction of them are not checking the tickets out, and then the remaining users are actually finalizing the user journey with a ticket in their hand, and are doing that in a linear flow where you're putting the same amount of users in and out of the ticketing path per time unit. Then there will eventually be a time where there is fewer and fewer tickets available. And again, the best way of handling that, finalizing the on-sale situation, is to take fewer and fewer users into the ticketing path to acquire and buy the remaining tickets. Imagine the following. At a given stage, you have 100 tickets left to sell. If you know that the rate of acquiring tickets is at you have a 1 to 2, you know that you need 200 users to actually purchase that 100 tickets. And with an average time of that purchase, for example, to be 5 minutes, there is absolutely no reason to take 2,000 users into the user journey at that time, because if you're doing that, the majority of the users in the ticketing path will then simply not be able to find and get the tickets they want. And eventually you will come to a situation where you only have one ticket left to sell. And again, if the ratio is 2 persons per purchase, then in that last minute time tick, you will only take 2 users into the ticketing pass. One of them will not buy, the other one will buy the remaining ticket. And then there might be a huge amount of users parked in queue or in a waiting room, but those users are still waiting, and therefore you have not put a 100% expectation into them to actually get the tickets. And with a smart platform like Qt, you would actually be able to messaging these users and tell them on the way towards 0 tickets that stock is running low, and then eventually messaging them that we are now 100% sold out. The other idea or recommendation here is basically to look at the basket and cart timeout. And the idea is basically to use a double timer. A timer where you are limiting the entire purchase process, and then there is a timer per page. So it can, for example, be that there is a total timeout of 7 minutes for the entry of the process and until you need to finalize the purchase. But then you can, on the different pages, set a additional timer up where you need to finalize what is on that page within that time frame. And that could, for example, be that you in total have, like in the example here, a 7 minute total checkout or timeout. 3 minutes on the basket card to finalize, 5 minutes to enter the information needed for your purchase, and then 3 minutes, for example, for the actual payment. So in average, by doing it this way, you would actually be able to decrease the average session time, out time, and therefore basically be able to do your on-sale faster, and doing it in a way where you are not stressing the end users. And it's something that is, of course, relatively simple to implement in a ticketing system, and where done the correct way, you might be able to take what would normally be a half an hour on-sale process and decrease that timeline into maybe 15 minutes. If you want more information, then please just visit our website, or contact me directly, and we will try to get information on how you can actually make your end users' journey through the big on sales way better than they might be now. Thanks.